Okay, welcome back for the second video where we're continuing through on our analysis of Charles. And yeah, we saw all these details growing, right, about Laurie and his behavior. And so here he is talking again to his dad, tells his joke, look up, look down, look at my thumb, gee, you're dumb. Okay, and he began to laugh. Notice the verbs again, insanely. Any response from the dad? The child insults his father here. Okay, so language issue. Remember, he's just a kindergartner, right? He's really young. Nothing. Silence from the father. Again, silent. No discipline. Not disciplining their child at all. Neither the mother nor the father has said anything about Charles' rude behavior. Or Laurie's rude behavior. Sorry. Why did Charles hit the teacher? I asked quickly. Because she tried to make him color with red crayons, Laurie said. Charles wanted to color with green crayons, so he hit the teacher, and she spanked him and said, "Nobody play with Charles," but everybody did. The third day, it was Wednesday of the first week. Charles bounced a seesaw on the head of a little girl and made her bleed. And teacher made him stay inside, all during recess. Thursday, Charles had to stand in a corner during story time because he kept pounding his feet on the floor. Friday, Charles was deprived of blackboard privileges because he threw chalk. Notice Charles, the teacher, gives consequences for behavior for Charles, right? Otherwise known as, that's a form of discipline. And notice the behavior is getting a little bit riskier. We got people bleeding now, hitting teachers, throwing stuff at people's heads, pounding his feet on the floor. And so there are these consequences for this bad behavior, right? But does it seem to have any effect on Charles? On Saturday, I remarked to my husband, "Do you think kindergarten is too unsettling for Laurie? All this toughness and bad grammar. And this Charles boy sounds like such a bad influence." So, toughness talking about for Laurie, and bad grammar for Laurie, and supposedly Charles, is a bad influence there. So, again, the speech, the indirect characterization. We're getting now the speech of the mother and her awareness and concerns. So notice what she's concerned about. Now, question is, does she do anything about her concerns? Did she say anything about his bad grammar and correct him? Nothing. "It'll be all right," my husband said reassuringly. "Bound to be people like Charles in the world. Might as well meet them now as later." So, the husband's recommendation: inaction, passive, not doing anything about it, not worried, not concerned. We don't need to do anything. Don't worry about it. On Monday, Laurie came home late, full of news. "Charles!" he shouted as he came up the hill. I was waiting anxiously on the front steps. Notice the language about the mother. Anxious. Worried. "Charles!" Laurie yelled all the way up the hill. "Charles was bad again." "Come right in," I said, as soon as he came close enough. "Lunch is waiting." "You know what Charles did?" he demanded. Notice the verbs again. following me through the door. Charles yelled. So in school they sent a boy in from first grade to tell the teacher she had to make Charles keep quiet, and so Charles had to stay after school. And so all the children stayed to watch him. What did he do? Now, did you notice anything here? Monday, Laurie came home late. What happened to Charles? He had to stay after school. But notice that Laurie's story has all the children staying to watch him. Okay, so this is quite creative lying storytelling, as you know, because you know the ending, but maybe someone will watch this video and not know the ending, so we'll see why that's important. What did he do? I asked. He just sat there, Laurie said, climbing into his chair at the table. Hi, Pop, you old dust mop. Okay, more insults on the father. Any response from the husband? Nope. Silence. Charles had to stay after school today, I told my husband. Everyone stayed with him. What does this Charles look like? My husband asked Laurie. What's his other name? Meaning his last name. He's bigger than me, Laurie said, and he doesn't have any rubbers, and he doesn't even ever wear a jacket. Monday night was the first parent-teachers meeting, and only the fact that the baby had a cold kept me from going. I wanted passionately to meet Charles' mother. On Tuesday, Laurie remarked suddenly, Our teacher had a friend come to see her in school today. Charles's mother? My husband and I asked simultaneously. Notice both the husband and the wife really want to meet Charles's mother. Okay? They're curious and they're judgmental about Charles's mother, the parents of Laurie. Notice how they're blaming the mother. Okay, they don't talk about the father. So, meanwhile, this husband doesn't do any discipline on his child, and neither does this mother of Laurie. And she must have another baby, a smaller baby, because she couldn't go to the meeting because her baby was sick. Nah, Laurie said scornfully. Notice the verbs again. Or adjective. It was a man who came and made us do exercises. We had to touch our toes. Look, he climbed down from his chair and squatted down and touched his toes. Like this. He said. He got solemnly back into his chair and said, picking up his fork, Charles didn't even do exercises. That's fine, I said heartily. Didn't Charles want to do exercises? Nah, Laurie said. Charles was so fresh to the teacher's friend, he wasn't let do exercises. Fresh again? I said. He kicked the teacher's friend, Laurie said. The teacher's friend told Charles to touch his toes, like I just did, and Charles kicked him. What are they going to do about Charles, do you suppose? Laurie's father asked him. I mean, why is the father asking a kindergartner his opinion on what they're going to do about Charles? Right? So we have this crazy situation where there's no parental wisdom or guidance or teaching. They should be telling Laurie what needs to happen in this situation. Charles shrugged elaborately. Notice the adjective. Throw him out of school, I guess, he said. Wednesday and Thursday were routine. Charles yelled during story hour and hit a boy in the stomach and made him cry. Okay, so we've got some yelling. We've already had lots of yelling in this story, but who did the yelling? More violence, hitting. On Friday, Charles stayed after school again, and so did all the other children. With the 3rd week of kindergarten, Charles was an institution in our family. The baby was being a Charles when she cried all afternoon. Laurie did a Charles when he filled his wagon full of mud and pulled it through the kitchen. Even my husband, when he caught his elbow in the telephone cord and pulled telephone ashtray and a bowl of flowers off the table, said, after the first minute, "Looks like Charles." During the 3rd and 4th weeks, it looked like a reformation in Charles. Laurie reported grimly. Notice the adjective, meaning like dourly or depressingly, darkly. At lunch on Thursday of the 3rd week, "Charles was so good today, the teacher gave him an apple." "What?" I said, and my husband added warily, "You mean Charles?" "Charles," Laurie said. "He gave the crayons around and he picked up the books afterward, and the teacher said he was her helper." "What happened?" I asked incredulously. "He was her helper, that's all," Laurie said, and shrugged. "Can this be true? About Charles?" I asked my husband that night. "Can something like this happen?" So they disbelieve in behavioral change. Actually, the parents don't believe that you can change the behavior and attitudes of a child. "Wait and see," my husband said cynically. He doesn't believe. She was incredulous, unbelieving. He's like darkly unbelieving. "When you've got a Charles to deal with, this may mean he's only plotting." He seemed to be wrong. For over a week, Charles was the teacher's helper. Each day he handed things out and he picked things up. No one had to stay after school. "The PTA meeting's next week again," I told my husband one evening. "I'm going to find Charles's mother there." "Ask her what happened to Charles," my husband said. "I'd like to know. I'd like to know myself." On Friday of that week, things were back to normal. "You know what Charles did today?" Laurie demanded at the lunch table in a voice slightly awed. "He told a little girl to say a word, and she said it, and the teacher washed her mouth out with soap, and Charles laughed." "What word?" his father asked unwisely. So he's asking his kindergartner to repeat vulgar language, swear words. That's not a very wise fatherly thing to do with a kindergartner. "I'll have to whisper it to you, it's so bad." He got off his chair and went around to his father. His father bent down, his head down, and Laurie whispered joyfully. His father's eyes widened. "Did Charles tell the little girl to say that?" he asked respectfully. Look at the father is asking respectfully. "She said it twice," Laurie said. "Charles told her to say it twice." "What happened to Charles?" my husband asked. "Nothing," Laurie said. "He was passing out the crayons." Monday morning, Charles abandoned the little girl and said the evil word himself 3 or 4 times, getting his mouth washed out with soap each time. He also threw chalk. My husband came to the door with me that evening as I set out for the PTA meeting. "Invite her over for a cup of tea after the meeting," he said. "I want to get a look at her." "If only she's there," I said prayerfully. "She'll be there," my husband said. "I don't see how they could hold a PTA meeting without Charles's mother." At the meeting, I sat restlessly, scanning each comfortable matronly face, trying to determine which one hid the secret of Charles. None of them looked to me haggard enough. No one stood up in the meeting and apologized for the way her son had been acting. No one mentioned Charles. After the meeting, I identified and sought out Laurie's kindergarten teacher. She had a plate with a cup of tea and a piece of chocolate cake. I had a plate with a cup of tea and a piece of marshmallow cake. We maneuvered up to one another cautiously and smiled. "I've been so anxious to meet you," I said. "I'm Laurie's mother." "We're all so interested in Laurie," she said. "Well, he certainly likes kindergarten," I said. "He talks about it all the time." "We had a little trouble adjusting the first week or so," she said primly, "but now he's a fine little helper." "With occasional lapses, of course." "Laurie usually adjusts very quickly," I said. "I suppose this time it's Charles's influence." "Charles?" "Yes," I said, laughing. "You must have your hands full in that kindergarten with Charles." "Charles?" she said. "We don't have any Charles in the kindergarten."